Southern California. Now, we're going to get into the details of what's going on this morning, how much snow we have seen already, and how much more snow is on the way. So we'll take a live look out there at some of the cameras across the region, look at live radar, and then, of course, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on down the line, right? This is just round number one. We're expecting to see significant snow once again into your Thursday, late Wednesday into Thursday, and that's where we're going to take this next. So I'm going to flip the camera back over to the weather graphics, and we will take a look at just how this plays out. Now, what you're seeing here are those watches and warnings, and we'll start off with that kind of tan color throughout portions of the valley, and I'll highlight that here, right? This vicinity, we are seeing a wind advisory. Now, that's in effect all the way through 10 p.m. on Thursday, because we are going to see several batches of fairly strong south winds across the region. Now, we've also got winter weather advisories, including the immediate north coast of Humboldt and Del Norte counties, as well as portions of I-5 and Siskiyou County, north of Mount Shasta City, and then into places like Doris, and getting a little closer to Modoc County, really as a whole, that winter weather advisory. What are we talking about with a winter weather advisory? Well, it's lesser impacts than we're seeing with a winter storm warning, which is out there for all of those areas in pink. Now, you'll notice that places like Redding and Red Bluff are underneath that wind advisory, but they are also now included under a winter storm warning. What are we talking about with a winter storm warning in Redding and Red Bluff? Are we really going to see significant snow out there? No. The concerns are not the same as what they would be in the higher elevations, right? We're talking about a very different threshold for a winter storm in those different locations. If you're talking about Bernie, Mount Shasta City, Weaverville, Shingletown, what qualifies as a winter storm there is very different than what qualifies as a winter storm in a place like Redding or Red Bluff. So we're talking about in those places more along the lines of maybe an inch on the high end in terms of that rainfall, or rather snowfall, and you're going to see most places closer to a dusting, or at least some flakes flying, if not any accumulation. So that's the big story, is that winter storm warning has been extended into Shasta and Tehama counties. Again, we could see some light snow out there for Redding, Anderson, Cottonwood, and Red Bluff, and this is in effect through into your Thursday evening. 10 p.m. Thursday is when that expires. The National Weather Service themselves mentioned that there are chances out there each morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but Wednesday and Thursday are those best bets to potentially see some snow accumulation into the valley floor. So we'll get into that, but let's take a look at what's going on over the higher elevations this morning. You can see Highway 299 just west of Weaverville there at Oregon Mountain Summit, and Highway 299 just west of Bernie at Hatchet Mountain. A lot of snow on the road surfaces out there. Maybe a little lull in the action, and that's kind of to be expected throughout the rest of the day today, is that we're going to go kind of off and on with these showers. You can see that the road is looking all right in Mount Shasta City. We do know that there are a lot of chain restrictions out there as you get out the door. I am doing this live here at about 9:30. If you're watching this back a little later, you'll probably have changed those road conditions. Go to that quickmap.dot.ca.gov there at the top of the screen and check out those road conditions as they go. But right now, there are a lot of areas where you need to have snow tread tires on all four wheels. Otherwise, you're not getting out. Keith says, good morning from Petaluma. Thanks for checking in. Appreciate you being here. We're taking a look at how this is playing out, and another look at some of those cameras across the higher elevations. We've got Chester. You can hardly even see highways 36 and 89 there. That's that junction between two major mountain highways, and it is hard to see a thing. We've got a lot of snow coming down near the entrance to Lassen National Park. We've seen several highway accidents there along Highway 44 between Shingletown and Old Station. So definitely an area of concern this morning. A lot of snow on the road once you get past Shingletown, and some tire requirements. You got to have those snow tread tires to get through and continue through the higher elevations. But lots of snow out there, and that continues this morning, right? Morning from the valley. Emma, thanks for hopping in. Appreciate you joining. Yeah, lots to talk about, including that valley potential for some snow. So we'll get into that, but let's talk about what's going on right now and break it out into a couple pieces, right? You can see this overall pattern, right? There's an overall rotation kind of swinging through. So what you see off the coast is going to be paralleled across the rest of the region a little later in the day. We have seen these showers move in. We've had some heavy rain at times throughout the valley, right? You felt that near Oroville, a little further south towards maybe Palermo, getting some heavy stuff, and now Rancho Tehama maybe in that core at the moment. What we're seeing with that snow is it's really everywhere. Above 2,000 feet is seeing significant snow accumulations, and that is going to continue to pile up all day long. Maybe it's more showery than the steady stuff that we saw through the early hours of your Tuesday, but there is still plenty more to come. Let's zoom in on the north coast, right? We talked about a winter weather advisory out there. This is not about that snow, right? You are seeing some low snow accumulations throughout the interior of Humboldt and Del Norte counties, but the story along the immediate coastline is not snow, but rather hail. We have seen significant hail incidents across the Humboldt Bay vicinity and further north, and with that, we have seen really dangerous road conditions. A quick look at some of those incidents from Caltrans, numerous vehicle accidents related to those slick road conditions around Humboldt Bay. So Eureka, Arcata, McKinleyville, Trinidad have seen significant hail. And that's going to be something that we have to just really watch for as we carry through today and into tomorrow, that potential for accumulating hail, right? It's not accumulating snow, but that hail that does fall in these kind of cold thunderstorms isn't going to melt very quickly because highs are really going to top out maybe in the mid-40s. Let's zoom this over to I-5, right? A critical stretch for transport. We have seen all vehicles screened for chains as of here about 9:30, making sure that you've got them, that you're ready for whatever you run into further up the road. And that chain screening is happening just north of Shasta Lake City at Fondale, the Fondale exit. So 10 miles north of Redding, you got to be, carrying chains. You may not need them on your tires right now, but you got to be carrying those chains to continue further north. And we are seeing snow flurries continue along that I-5 corridor, right, all the way up here beyond Lakehead, where it's still kind of a rain-snow mix. We continue a little further up towards Castella and Dunsmuir, all kinds of snow up that way as you get towards the Shasta-Siskiyou County line. Mount Shasta City, plenty of snow this morning, still more to come. Again, we talk about those showers tracking across the region gradually. That's going to continue. Let's take a look at how this is playing out a little further to the east, right? In Plumas County, Chester and Quincy have seen a whole lot of snow as we carry through that kind of Monday night into early Tuesday window, and it just hasn't stopped. We're really dumping a lot of that out over the Sierra Crest. You go further south, you are seeing areas expected to get 8+ feet of snow over the course of this week. So it is remarkable what we're seeing out there. Now, worth noting is that you might see a little lull in the action. Maybe you're checking in from Magalia or Paradise, and you're kind of right here along the line, right along that snow line, where maybe you've seen a couple showers, but maybe you're just hanging out cloudy. As we drag some of this heavier precipitation across the valley floor, right, we're going to see things go from west to east. As that happens, you're going to potentially see that snow line briefly drop a little lower once again. So I saw a comment from somebody on Facebook a little earlier this morning. They got some snow in Magalia. Maybe that's not happening at this hour, but you could still see some more flurries as we head later on into the day and carry a little closer to that midday stretch when things start to get a little too warm to support snow down that low. We talked about a wind advisory in the valleys. Sustained winds of 15 to 25 miles an hour showing up across a lot of that I-5 and Highway 99 corridor. So it's a windy, wet one out there. Even if you're not dealing with snow, you're dealing with kind of a nasty start to your Tuesday. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about those winds because the lack of them is going to be really actually critically important to the potential for some valley snow. What happened this morning, right? We saw tons and tons of snow over the higher elevations for areas down to 2,000 feet and locally even lower, right? Over northern Shasta County, we saw that snow level closer to maybe 1,500 feet. Over interior Humboldt County, that's kind of where we were as well. But nobody in the valley floor is really seeing that potential for snow this morning. We never got anywhere near that, right? You can start to see some snow flurries show up in places once you start talking about an overnight low of maybe 36, 37, starting to mix in some snow. Anything colder than that, yeah, you're looking pretty good. Well, we bottomed out closer to about 40, 41, 42 in most valley communities, and that was driven by that strong south wind. Think about where that's coming from, right? If we zoom things out, we're looking at where this air is coming from. It's coming from the Bay Area, where things are nowhere near snow-worthy, right? We're getting some very mild air into the region, and once we cut that off, that's when we can start talking about snow in the lower elevations. So it's too little too late today, right? That south wind is going to kind of die out in the afternoon when we're already at our warmest temperatures, and you're talking about valley highs in the mid to upper 40s. It's just not going to do us any good if you're trying to get that lowland snow. Overnight, you might see a little bit of that northwest breeze, and it is a little bit gusty out there in some spots, right? Redding, Red Bluff, kind of feeling that shot through the gaps of the Yola through into the Trinity Alps, kind of just shooting down into the valleys. So there may be some cold air kind of pulled in, and we do expect a lot of places to feel a chilly start to your Wednesday, in part because of that kind of wind direction, but also because we're going to see fairly clear skies. And I'll show you that in a little bit. Wednesday's not this major window for snow. It's Thursday that we have to watch for. But we know that winds can totally spoil that, so we have to run ahead towards that next batch of wet weather. And we're starting to see a little bit of that south breeze get going into your Wednesday afternoon, right? That next low is kind of swinging in a little bit further to our south, and so we're going to have those winds kind of wrapping around it as we continue further into the day. And so there you go, right? You've got those winds running out of the south through the valley floor and getting us into that 15 to 25 mile an hour range into your Wednesday night. So that's mild air. It's all rain in the valley if we even have precipitation at that point. As we carry through into Thursday morning, though, look at that, right? 5 a.m., you're kind of cutting that wind off. Maybe it's north of Reading, maybe it's closer to Anderson, but wherever we are, you notice that that wind kind of gets cut off in Shasta County. How far south we can cut off that wind and say no to that south flow, that is going to be that deciding factor for snow, right? Because otherwise, if we don't have that south wind, we're going to be carrying a light north breeze. All this cold air from the mountains kind of seeping down into the north end of the valley. So that's what we have to see. Thursday morning, can we cut things off enough in the right window? Really, we're watching kind of 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's going to be that chance for some snow, and the winds look like they're going to comply. So this is a better chance than what we saw here on Tuesday, because Tuesday had the moisture and it had some cold air in the right places, but we did have that wind to spoil it. Thursday, everything else is the same except for that wind, and that's why that's your best bet for some low elevation snow throughout Shasta and Tehama counties in particular. Now, let's take a look at thunderstorms, right? We talked about how that has provided some significant hail along the north coast, and that has been far from a good thing. We have seen a lot of vehicle accidents driven by that hail and just those slick road conditions. Switching from rain to hail, and wet hailstones are incredibly slippery. So you really want to be careful out there as those thunderstorms continue today. We are expecting that to focus along the north coast and then throughout the valley. Over the higher terrain, that snow is going to keep things, relatively stable. It's fairly unusual to get thunder and lightning with snow. It's a phenomenon chased by meteorologists and weather enthusiasts all around the globe, thunder snow. And I don't expect that to be a real concern for us. Again, look at I-5, Highway 99, and 101 as those highways where you may see that thunderstorm focus throughout the day. Let's take a look at it on Precisioncast, right? You can see all of that area in blue, seeing snow this morning. It is a little more showery. Earlier in the day, we had that true horseshoe effect where you are wrapping steady snow all the way around the valley, but that's not happening anymore, right? We've kind of gotten out of it a little bit. We're starting to see that more unstable, scattered showers type of setup as we continue through into the afternoon. So the worst of that heavy snow across the board is behind us, but don't get it twisted. There's still a very real potential for more of that heavy snow at times throughout the day in kind of bursts as those showers roll through. Look towards the north end of the valley, places like Reading and Red Bluff, to maybe see some lunchtime showers out there, even a thunder shower or two, and then you see some clearing actually happen into the later afternoon. Look at Corning. Maybe you get down towards Orland, Chico. You're seeing a potential break in the skies to get outside, but make sure you're ready to get back indoors quickly as those skies clearing can give way to potential thunderstorm development. As we continue into the night, you'll notice that those skies are becoming a little bit calmer. We're dealing with less and less shower activity late here on Tuesday. Still some thunderstorms along the north coast, right? That hail problem is still going to be something that we deal with through into your Wednesday afternoon and evening. So you have to be ready for more of that driving on slick wintry conditions right along the immediate Pacific coast. But look at places like Reading, Red Bluff, Chico, right? We have fairly clear skies into your early Wednesday. That round of moisture that's out there today will have wound down, and we're talking about a pretty good break. And so that break in the action will allow overnight lows to get quite chilly. Then we head into the later morning window, right? As the sun's coming up, we may have just a little bit of remnant moisture, just a tiny bit to work with. And if we can drag that into the valley in that window of, 5 to 8 a.m. while it's still cold enough, then you might see some flurries out there. I think the city of Shasta Lake, Old Shasta, Whiskeytown National Recreation Area, those are spots where, you'll probably get a nice little bit of light snow tomorrow morning. Reading proper, the models are showing that as rain on Wednesday, not as snow, but I think it's still a possibility that we get a couple wet flakes flying out there in a place like Reading. Now, as you head further south, much less likely, right? A lot of this moisture is kind of focusing over the northern half of the North State. We're going to see things kind of sweep like this. And so as you go south, less likely that there's much moisture to work with tomorrow morning during those coldest hours. And it's also worth noting that those coldest hours as you head further south just aren't as cold. A place like Chico, Willows, Oroville, you're probably going to see those overnight lows tonight into your Wednesday. A little closer to maybe 32 to 35 rather than 30 to 33 across the north end of the valley. So a little bit more snow-worthy in places throughout Shasta and Tehama counties than we'll see further south, and also a little more moisture to work with. But Wednesday is that kind of dud day, right? We have some showers out there. They're spotty. You'll still get some light rain in the valley here and there. You're still talking about pretty good rain along the north coast, and that really picks up into the night. That's all about that next round of showers. So here we go, right? We're seeing that snow in the higher elevations still right around 2,000 feet Wednesday night, and then we're going to carry that moisture back in. It's going to kind of ride in out of the south, so you're going to see rain fill in the valley. You're not going to see snow out of the gates, and that is important to keep in mind, that you're going to start as rain pretty much everywhere, and that will make it difficult for any snow that does fall to accumulate. But here's the interesting part, right? We talk about, okay, we get into that 4 or 5 o'clock window on Thursday morning, we can cut off that wind and drop that snow line further south. Now, I think this is a little aggressive. We've seen this in the past. With this particular model here, it does have a tendency to bring that snow line a little too far to the south. I don't think we're necessarily going to see anything significant in terms of snow in a place like Red Bluff. I think your upper end potential there is closer to a ½ inch, whereas Redding may be able to hold on to that cold air. We did that once last year in the late winter, early spring period, kind of early March. We did see pretty impressive snow accumulate for a lot of communities around Redding, especially the suburbs to the north and west. We did end up doing pretty well. So that's where I think there is that upward potential on the high end for that Redding snow that maybe gets you a couple inches that doesn't last long. That's the important thing. And we'll talk about that as we go, but you do have a better potential as you get a little further north, up I-5 than you do as you head south. Even with that winter storm warning in effect in Tehama County, I don't expect anything significant out there as of right now. Now, this is all subject to change, right? As you know, living in this area, valley snow is very, very finicky. It just takes the right conditions and you can go from nothing to 4 inches, and we have to watch how that all plays out over the next 24 hours or so, or even the next 36 hours before we have a really good idea. And as frustrating as that is, it is the kind of patience that we need to nail things in this area. Now, let's take a look at what's going on as we continue through Thursday, right? That shower activity tapers off into the late morning, and we move into a pretty clear evening on Thursday. A lot of those skies kind of easing off, and this is going to be the window to watch. If you're watching this and you've got plants out in your garden, if you got outdoor pets, this is going to be a real night of concern, especially for agriculture locally, right? We've seen a lot of plants start to blossom. Lots of trees show their flowers, get beautiful with that warmth we saw earlier in February. Thursday night into Friday, we're going to see widespread frost and freezing out there. And I think that is going to be very difficult on a lot of our crops and a lot of folks' backyard plants. So if you can do anything ahead of time to protect them, get some frost cloth, bring them inside, whatever you can do, that's probably a really good idea Thursday into Friday. I would not be surprised to see a place like Redding get down into the upper 20s out there Thursday night into Friday, just with those clear skies behind that very cold storm. So now let's get to what you're probably waiting for, that rain and snow. How much are we expecting? Well, we get a couple more showers out there throughout the day today, a little bit more prolific along the north coast with that potential for ½ an inch to 2/3 of an inch expected here in this model, and I think that's very reasonable. Now, you're going to have winners and losers as you do with that more convective setup, right? Sometimes we talk about stratiform precipitation. That's just that blanket, rain everywhere. This is a little bit more convective. It's driven by those thunderstorms, so you have some cells in places, and then you have other areas where you're getting sun breaks. What happens is you get a little bit of that winner-loser setup, and so maybe Eureka is at 2/3 of an inch, and then maybe just down the road in Ferndale, you're closer to 1/4 of an inch. That's the kind of thing that can happen with this setup. But I do expect pretty decent totals along the north coast today, carrying into your early Wednesday, and then throughout the valley. Maybe it's not much today, but you do have a couple showers. Wednesday itself, pretty quiet, but Thursday early, we're already starting to bring a lot of that moisture in, and then here's the interesting thing, right? This gets us through your Thursday. Most of this time here for that rain is spent at snow-worthy temperatures in the higher elevations. What do I mean by that? Well, we're hanging out 35 degrees or lower. So what is going to be falling out there isn't rain in Weaverville or Hayfork or Mount Shasta City or Bernie or Shingletown or Chester. We're talking about that as snow. Now, snow has a lot of air in it, right? That's why it's white rather than clear like rain. And so there's a lot of air contained in that, and the colder it is, the fluffier that snow is. And that's something that I spent a lot of time on this morning, was trying to kind of figure out that snow ratio, right? We assume at 32 degrees, you're mostly talking about that snow being a multiplier of 6 to 8 from the rain value, right? So if you had an inch of rain and you were in an area where it was cold enough to snow, if it's 32 degrees and we're talking about an inch of true precipitation, you're talking 6 to 8 inches of snow. So what I spent a lot of time on this morning was figuring out, okay, what are those snow ratios for our individual communities, right? We're talking about some very, very cold overnight lows into the upper teens, mid-20s in a lot of places, and that snow is very, very fluffy. You're starting to talk about snow ratios where, 1/100th of an inch of rain would be equivalent to 1/4 of an inch of snow, right? Crazy, crazy multipliers on that precipitation. So if you really want to just look at this and give yourself a rough rule of thumb, multiply that number in Weaverville, in Hayfork, all those mountain communities, multiply it by 8 to 12, and that gives you a very rough range of what kind of snow you could see out there. And I'll show you those real snow estimates in just a moment, but that's kind of what we're working with, right? Is that you have that multiplier on that true liquid precipitation that goes into snow. So we'll take a look at those snow estimates, and we'll start off with what you can kind of expect throughout the rest of the day today. This is the IBM model within our weather graphics system. And I think it handles all right. I think it underdoes things in places like Mount Shasta City pretty regularly. So I would set your expectations a little higher there. But notice that you've got a couple more inches on the way in Bernie, Chester, and Shingletown as the day wears on. And you're probably closer to maybe another inch in Weaverville and Hayfork. But this is just the beginning, right? We'll continue to see a little bit more light snow activity throughout the day on Wednesday. And then Thursday's where we could continue to bring that snow down into the lower elevations. I don't love the way the model handles Thursday morning right now, right? It wants to drag that all the way down to Corning. I'm not so sure about that, but I do think that you are looking at pretty decent numbers over the higher elevations, if not underestimates there. So let's take a look at my snow estimates. We'll run it through, right? Show you, obviously, we get some more snow through the rest of your Tuesday. Your Wednesday's pretty quiet out there, and then it's Thursday where we pack that punch, and by Friday morning, we're all wrapped up. Here's what I think is going to happen out there. I think we're talking about roughly a half a foot of additional snow in Trinity County, right? You get a little bit more as you go up towards Trinity Center than you do in Weaverville. You get a little less as you go towards Douglas City and Lewiston, right? You're a little lower, a little bit less to work with there, a little bit smaller snow ratios, but you're still talking about pretty healthy snow. Then let's carry it over to the eastern high country. How about that? Bernie, half a foot is a safe bet. Shingletown, you might be running up a foot of snow. In Chester, you probably will. Mount Shasta City's kind of right there as well. We take a look at Alturas. This is why we're under winter weather advisory there rather than a winter storm warning. We're not talking about crazy amounts of snow. We're talking about less moisture to work with there, and thus you're probably going to see that snow very powdery, very fluffy, but not very much, 2 to 5 inches expected. Now, I think Paradise is a place where on the low end, we get a nice dusting out there into your Thursday morning, and then, talking about maybe a couple inches expected on the high end there. I think you do see places like Magalia do significantly better, just a little bit further up the road, but Paradise does have that snow potential. And then let's talk about the valley, right? I think right now my expectation in Red Bluff on the high end is a little dusting. I think you get a little bit maybe sticking on the grass, on the bark, maybe a little bit on the hood of your car, that sort of thing. But this isn't the kind of snow that's going to stick on road surfaces in Tehama County. In Redding, there is that potential, right? We do have a little bit of room to maybe run up an inch or two of snow for a couple of hours. But that's the really key thing to keep in mind, is I just want to highlight that, is that we're talking about, even on this snowy day, Thursday, that has that highest potential, we're really going to see, those temperatures in the afternoon still running into, at the very least, the low 40s in the valley, if not the mid 40s. So sure, you have this, 4-hour magical window in the morning where you are seeing, things starting out at 33 degrees and we're just piling up snow for a couple hours. You think we're cooking with gas. Well, all of a sudden that's all going to melt very quickly into the afternoon. So it might be a fun, brief, wonderful moment out there on Thursday, but it shouldn't be a long-term impact. What will be more of a long-term headache is the ongoing travel issues that you'll see over the higher elevations as we head through the next couple days. So we talk about your Wednesday, fairly quiet in terms of additional snow, but still some chain restrictions likely out there. And then Thursday is kind of a redo of your Tuesday where you're going to see that widespread travel trouble. Lots of chain requirements out there. Again, at an R1, that's really for trucks with trailers. That's when you need those chains. R2, if you have snow tread tires on your car, you're good, but you got to be carrying those chains. You have to have them with you in case things get worse as you continue your journey. And then R3 is chains required on the tires for all vehicles, no exceptions. So that's what you hear when you hear R1, R2, R3. Here on Tuesday morning, lots of R2. Good morning from Big Sky, Montana. The Thriving One, thanks for hopping in. Definitely, we don't know that kind of cold that you see out in the Big Sky country, but we definitely have some chilly temperatures on the way locally. Now, I'll flip this back real quickly, and we'll just take a look at what's going on out there locally one more time to give folks a chance to throw some questions in. If you have anything that you're curious about, if you want to hear more about snow numbers, if you want to know about your area, throw it in the comments. I would be glad to talk a little bit about it. But again, there's those snow estimates through your Friday morning. After that, we do expect snow levels to kind of come up a little bit, right? This is where we start talking about Saturday, maybe closer to 3,000 feet and even 4,000 or 5,000 feet on Sunday as our next system comes in. And that is key to remember. There is a next system, right? This is going to continue to be an active pattern for us well into next week. We expect Sunday, Monday to bring some heavy rain out there, and most models agree. You've got 2 to 4 inches plus of rain still to come as we look ahead to next week and towards the end of February. So this is a real break in that pattern. We saw the early goings of the month very much in that 70 and sunny ballpark for many places, well, we're kind of getting our own cold snap. While the East Coast had theirs, we were just nice and balmy. Now the switch has flipped, rather, and we're headed into our own active pattern. So that's what we're seeing across the region this morning. Again, a quick look at those highway conditions as you head out the door. This is as of about 9:30 and 10 o'clock, depending on when they grab those screenshots. Lots and lots of snow over the higher terrain. Highways 36, 89, 44, all with some chain requirements this morning. And even I-5, you got to have those snow tires to go from Reading up to Mount Shasta City. You have to have them. And if you do have those, you also have to have those snow chains in your car. But better be ready to chain up, right? So that's the big story. I don't have a whole lot more to talk about. I will continue to update. I'll provide another live video tomorrow as we get closer to that valley snow potential. I think right now, though, we're kind of hanging out on that wait and see kind of moment. Where are we going to go with this? I think we do see some snow flurries. I think we do see some light accumulation throughout the valley. How much we see, that is still to be determined, and that will require a little more time. But I think we have a good picture of what's going on in the higher elevations. Again, expect several more inches in that next round on Thursday after just a little bit more here in a showery Tuesday. Thank you to everybody who hopped on this live. I appreciate your time. Hope you can stay safe, warm, and dry as we navigate this active weather. I'll see you back with another live stream tomorrow.